is 17 the most common CAG expansion for everyone?
I'm curious why you think someone's asking this because I saw this question. I was like, this is an interesting question. I don't think I've gotten this before. So I'll answer it and then Katie, maybe you can shed some light and then I can expand my answer. Shall we
Sure.
go about it that way?
Yes.
Um, so as far as we know, in terms of, natural history studies and looking at the most common an abnormal and normal number, 17 is the most common normal CAG repeat. So anything 20, below 26, right, is in the normal range. And we know that you will not develop Huntington's disease within your lifetime, and your subsequent generations or your offspring are not at risk for this disease. You have your gray zones of your 26 to 36 and 36 to 39, and then anything above, 40 and above, with 42 being the most common abnormal number in Huntington's disease. So we know those um, common numbers. So yeah, 17, but do we know the difference really between 14, 15, 16, 17? No, we don't know those nuances. But yeah, 17 is the most common, quote, normal number that we see. So Katie.
Is it?
Mhm.
So in the support groups, everyone says like we talk about different CGs, and they always say 17 and 19.
That's
17
me.
and yeah, I just called you out, sorry.
Yeah.
um,
Or two 17s,
well,
right?
so it's so interesting, and I'm looking because that's why I'm looking down, because we had to take some questions out because we got so many that, and so I was looking to see if this was one question that was taken out. It looks like there was no question about having the two Saint CAGs that any of you guys got, right? I'm going through, it doesn't
I
look like.
don't I don't see it. So it's not uncommon. So we have two 17s, right? Because 17 is the most common abnormal, and they'll specify that you have two 17s. So that's not unusual to see. But yeah, 17 is the most common normal number, and we see it all the time.
Yeah, so another question that came in, the 17 came in, which kind of made us kind of laugh because we always hear 17 and
Hmm.
support all in our community. But someone asked, my number's 1717. Is it wrong? Should I go get retested? Did they mess my test up? That was
It's
one
not,
question.
yeah, it's not, it shouldn't be wrong because 17 is the most common normal number. So it wouldn't be unusual for you to get 17 from mom and 17 from dad, right? Because they both are carrying a 17. Um, so usually the test specifies, they don't just say you have 17, it says you have 17 on two of your alleles or something like that. So it does break it down a little bit for you. If there's ever just one number with not a specification that two alleles are represented by that one number, then I would make sure that you double check with the team and that things are read out correctly, because there are on rare occasions where things can be missed or checked out, but for the most part, these tests are incredibly reliable, and you just need to make sure it just says 17 on two alleles.
Okay, so if
Well,
17 is the most common, is there an HD most common, like
42.
42?
hmm. So,
I'm glad you
42
asked
is the
that.
most I'm glad you asked that. Yeah.
Yeah, 42 is the most common abnormal number, and 17 is the most common normal number.
So,
Cool.
because I asked this question of my genetic counselor and I cannot explain it, so hopefully Dr. Duffy or Dr. Napolis can. Sometimes it says on the test, if you have two of the same number, so set two 17s, it says something about it cannot detect. Dr. Duffy, what does it say, Napolis? It says something about 17 and 17 was found, cannot detect if it's a larger number than,
Yeah.
whatever.
If it's
Thank
very
you,
large,
Dr.
I mean,
Napolis.
it's really unusual, but, and it's, Dr. Duffy, you'd already, I think, alluded to this, but if you have an extremely long repeat, sometimes that can be masked if you have two alleles. And so the scenario would be, do you have two 17s, or is it possible that you have an extremely long? Now, here's the thing. If you have an extremely long one, you most likely have someone who's already suffering and they have juvenile Huntington's. And so if you're a healthy 30-year-old and you're wondering if your 217s are correct, it's likely that they're correct, because the other scenario would be that the 17s are incorrect and instead you have one 17 and one 150. Did I explain that right,
That's
Sasha?
very
That's
Yeah,
clear.
yeah, yeah.
usually
It-
what it is. It's really rare.
and clinically, it would be fairly obvious in a sense, right? So,
Correct. That's
yeah.
the whole thing. That
Yeah.
the only time when you would worry about are those 217s accurate is if instead you had a 17 and something that's really high. So like I said, clinically, you'd be able to figure that out.
Yeah.
I
You know
think
what?
that's,
I
It's
think
also sorry, go ahead.
I think sometimes, I mean, when I first saw it, I was like, wait, what does this mean? Like, this is kind of alarming. And it wasn't my test, but so I had to ask a genetic counselor. So that's what I'm going to tell people, is that if you have questions about your test results or what these numbers mean, that's what genetic counselors are for, and they're fabulous at that. And you can call your local, Huntington Center of Excellence, and hopefully they can get you connected with their genetic counselor to talk to you about what these specific numbers mean for you. Sorry, Dr. Duffy, go ahead.
No, no, no. So this, I think, really emphasizes the importance of testing through centers that know what to do with this information. So, we've had, unfortunately, people, I call it, go out there in the wild and get their gene tested because they want to get genetic testing, and they don't go through centers that are equipped and knowledgeable to walk you through this journey and thinking about undergoing genetic testing and the implications of it. But not just, all those really important aspects of it, but also interpretation of your test and the clinical relevance of your test, right? What are you bringing to the table? What are you experiencing? How is this impacting me here and now? And how is it going to impact my future? But also just interpretation of the test, and we've had, tons of different scenarios where we've had people come to us in crisis with these numbers that they don't know what to do, where, a physician's like, here's your test, but I really don't know what to tell you about it, because we don't know what these numbers mean. Let's say you have 38 and you're in the gray zone. What does that mean for me? What does that mean for my kids? Well, it is very meaningful, but you have to be able to interpret it. What if I'm double allele positive, and they're both expanded? What is that? I mean, there's just all sorts of things that can happen. And you need people to help you through that interpretive process, and support you. So I think really importantly from actually this question, emphasize the importance of doing this under the guidance of people that can help you through this.
Perfect. Perfect. So much good info. Lisa, benefits and waivers take so long that most people will never get the benefits they need before it is too late.
In general, I would say that is true. Unfortunately, it is true. I think this person is probably talking about benefits and waivers through government assistance programs, like Medicaid or housing programs, different things of that nature. So short answer is yes. Unfortunately, sometimes that is the case. Now, that said, going back to one of my previous answers, start early. So again, it is likely that you may need to utilize some of these benefits. So the earliest you can apply for these things, I would definitely recommend doing that, so that maybe you apply for them before you actually need it. But because of what we understand about Huntington's and Huntington's progression, we know that in 3 years you might, you would qualify for this or you would need it, and those types of things. The other thing is some programs do have priority exemptions. They don't necessarily advertise them. So what I encourage people to do is advocate, ask questions, let them know my loved one has Huntington's disease. It is, progressive and eventually, will lead to death, and they need support and care. And, they have a little bit of progression every year. And, we really need to get them on this program earlier. And sometimes, they do have the exemptions and they just need a form filled out by your doctor or a letter from your doctor or something that gives them more information about what is needed so that they can qualify for these certain exemptions. So I would empower you to, yes, they might tell you no, but ask more questions. If it seems like you should qualify for this benefit, you probably do, and you just have to ask questions. Again, goes back to patience and persistence. I feel like that's the whole theme. Adapt, adjust, patience, and persistence. That's the whole theme of your Huntington's journey. And ask the questions, because again, the worst they can tell you is no, we don't have anything like that. But if you keep asking, you can also go to your congressmen and women and talk to them about, this benefit that would be available, but is excluding your family member because the wait list is too long, and see if you can get some action that way. It is very, very frustrating and hard to do. And this is also where your Huntington Center of Excellence team can come in really helpful, and they can advocate for you and with you, and, help you, understand who to talk to and maybe what questions to ask. So involve your team members.
Definitely. So, Dr. Pagnopoulos, is HD a mental illness or a brain disorder?
Well, mental illnesses are brain disorders. So let me break that down, because it's the same. So the way the brain works, so neurons means brain cells. The brain works by communicating neuron to neuron. And it does that through passing chemicals. So you probably heard things like neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, passing those, and also electricity, right? So that's how neurons talk to each other, chemicals and electricity. And they do it in circuits. So a circuit means regions of the brain that talk to each other, right? So this piece of the brain talks to this piece of the brain. They're talking all the time, really fast, ongoing communication. And so the same exact, what we call physiology, the physiology of how your brain works, the same exact physiology that allows me to do this is the same exact physiology that allows me to do that. It's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. It's just different brain circuits and or different chemicals. And so in the context of thinking about the three categories of symptoms of Huntington's, it is simply the same brain physiology, degeneration, which means brain cells are dying, so brain circuits are not working right. And the first one that goes wrong, they all go wrong, but the first one that I'm going to explain is motor, right? And so, right, the brain circuits that govern your movements, when that's abnormal, you get chorea. The brain circuits that govern thinking, memory, concentration, organization, the speed in which you process things. When that goes wrong, you get thinking skills changes. When the brain circuits that govern your mood, your behavior, your thinking process in the context of, or sensory, whether you're hearing a voice if no one's there, those are all just different brain circuits that are going wrong and giving you symptoms. So it's no different whether it's mental or whether it's, because you can think of cognitive and psychiatric stuff as mental, but it's all brain disorder, and it's all the same disease, and it's all relatively simplistic. I guess it's just different circuits that are undergoing degeneration and allowing those symptoms to occur.
Yeah. And part of me wonders if this question, and I didn't realize how important until we started doing education days and we went to NAMI and we asked them, can you come and talk? And they said, HD is not a mental, we don't recognize HD within NAMI. And we're like, what? No, you guys are a movement disorder. And we were like, oh, well, we have, people with psychiatric behaviors, like we need your services, we need your, this resources too. And they actually wouldn't even show up to our event. So we started talking to NAMI and explaining HD. And then now it looks like we're finally being recognized, but that was shocking to me about some resources you don't get. And now working with law enforcement, like I sit on 2 boards for the International Chief of Police, and we're working on interrogation and interviewing people with disabilities. And they are like, we don't know even how to categorize HD. because it's confusing. And so I didn't realize like
Yeah.
how hard it is.
Yeah. Well, and also let me just give you a practical example. In the last 2 weeks, I have psychiatrically hospitalized 3 patients. So I have a new emergency room physician, and I'm just getting to know her. And after, Friday's clinic where we admitted one more, and one of them had psychosis, actually 2 of them had psychosis. One of them was just having really serious dementia. And so, just a danger to himself because he was living on his own. He couldn't care for himself. He was lighting himself on fire. Poor buddy, needed help, was unable because of his dementia from the Huntington's disease one, unable to care for himself. So that's the time. And those are all things that are what I would call psychiatric emergencies. And so it's just not uncommon that some of the most difficult and challenging behaviors for families are due to the mental, to the cognitive and psychiatric symptomatology, but most importantly, that you can get help with. And so you bet NAMI needs to be involved, and you bet psychiatry needs to be involved, and you bet for those patients coming to the psychiatric hospital for stabilization, it is what's really important for those patients and their families.